women, especially beautiful women like Sadia Khan, they can't possibly relate to that experience of being rejected by other beautiful women.
Today on the Glen Gilbert Connection, we're pulling back the curtain on controversy, shaking up relationship advice world. Sadia Khan, a social media figure with massive following, has been accused of falsely claiming to be a psychologist. For countless men navigating heartbreak, divorce, or betrayal, her words carry the weight of professional authority. But what happens when that authority isn't real? My guest, Paul Bauer, coach, author, and host of the Come On Man podcast, is a respected relationship coach who's seen firsthand the damage this kind of deception can cause, not just to vulnerable men, but to the credibility of every legitimate professional in this space. Paul, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Glenn.
Absolutely. So before we get too much into the specifics, can you share your reaction when you first heard the allegations that Sadia Khan had been presenting herself as a psychologist without legitimate credentials?
I almost laughed. Honestly, to me, it was a funny thing because on my platform, I'm often telling these guys, my audience, to not take dating and relationship advice from women. Maybe it's a misogynist take, but as a man, I've seen firsthand what it's like being in the dating world. I've experienced it. I know what it's like to walk up to a woman and get rejected. And the thing is that women, especially beautiful women like Sadia Khan, they can't possibly relate to that experience of being rejected by other beautiful women. There's one female dating coach in the space that I somewhat respect. She's been on my show. She goes by Jamie Date on TikTok. And the reason why I like Jamie is because she and I have a similar background when it comes to sales. When I got out of the Navy, I did door-to-door office supply sales, which, if you didn't know, a lot of the pickup artistry came from the door-to-door sales process. You have to get people to like you quickly, right? And so I did that for a little while when I got out of the Navy, and it turns out that Jamie worked for the same company out in California. And so I was like, so she gets it. She knows what it's like to actually walk up to people and get rejected. Obviously she's not selling herself, she's selling a product, but it's a very similar feeling, Right. And on top of that, one of the things that she does is she goes on dating apps posing as men, and she tries her shtick with women to see what works and what doesn't. And so she's actually following a very proven, very red pill process of, testing things out and seeing what works and leaving what doesn't and going with what works. So she knows how women are in the modern dating scene just by pretending to be a man. And so she's kind of a fascinating one-off, person, but most of these other women in the space have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to men. And so when I first saw that, I just laughed. I was like, okay, yeah, you guys shouldn't have been listening to, a woman in the first place, right? Mm-hmm. But then I started seeing, maybe her credentials aren't even real. And I don't like to make that accusation. I don't, I'm not an expert on documents, but other people in the space have made that accusation. Other people that claim to understand, Photoshop and what Photoshop looks like when you're doctoring. Okay, maybe I can see that. So I don't want to, be accused and be sued for saying that what she did is fake, but it's just the possibility of it being fake. I was like, this is crazy, man. This is nuts. And I wasn't even going to do a show about it, but I do a sponsored video segment, and someone actually wanted my take on it. So I was like, all right, well, I'm not too above doing a take on that if you're paying for it. So, but yeah, it was pretty shocking. And in early on in my podcasting, Sadia used to follow me before she got big. She used to follow me on Instagram. She used to comment on my posts and stuff. And I was like, oh, she seems like a nice chick. And this was also before I really understood sort of the female dating grift, and in the female MRA grift. They're very similar type grifts in the space. And so I didn't think much of it, but having seen this and actually interviewing some of these women and then seeing the behind the scenes and being on their shows and seeing what happens behind the scenes, I'm like, okay, yeah, like obviously this, there, you guys shouldn't be following this chick anyway, but all you guys are going to simp. You got simps are going to be simps. So like, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
But this sort of thing comes out and it's like, all right, maybe you guys need to really look at who you're getting your information from.
Sure. Jamie has a definite edge. If she's posing as a man, if she's already understanding what it's like to get rejected, I mean, that's pretty huge. That's very impressive.
Yeah, and there's not very many women in the space doing that.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
that's an edge that she's already got. It's like, hey, I get a sense of what you guys are going through. I mean,
Hmm.
that's impressive. From your perspective as a legitimate relationship coach, why is it so important for professionals in this space to be transparent about their qualifications?
What I mean, if you're not transparent with the people that you're talking to, you're never going to develop real trust with those
Mm,
people. Now, one of the things that you and I were talking about backstage, I talked about it on my podcast with Sadia. I've got my certification, my master life coach certification. I've got my NLP master practitioner certification. And I did all that stuff, one, because I wanted to, for NLP specifically, I really wanted to learn how to use NLP to help people. But the life coach certification, really the only reason why I even got it was because have you ever read the book, The 4 Hour Work Week?
yes.
Phenomenal book, right?
Right.
One of the things, one of the chapters in that book is how to create instant credibility,
Mm,
right? And so this is a problem, and I'm giving the magic away, right? The secret sauce in the space away. But this is one of the things that a lot of people will do because not because they really need to do that, because you don't have to have a certification to be to declare yourself a coach.
right.
But the people that are hiring coaches are more concerned about marketing than actual results. So there's some people that won't take me seriously because I don't walk around in a suit, right? How can you possibly get women if you're not a high value man wearing a suit? And it's like, well, because I live out in Western Colorado in ranch country and nobody wears suits out here. And if I walk in a suit all day, I would look like an idiot. So, but people are more concerned about the looks than the information that I'm giving, right? So I knew that going into the space, and so I was like, oh well, I should probably get certified as a master life coach if I'm going to be coaching people, because not because everyone needs that, because a lot of people are looking for a piece of paper.
Right.
And so I look at it like the movie Tommy Boy, where Tommy Boy, he's trying to sell auto parts and he gets his first sale because he goes to this guy and the guy's like, I'm not buying your parts. You don't have a guarantee on the box. And he's like, well, I can take a crap in the box and put a guarantee on it. I got spare time, but wouldn't you rather just buy a quality product for me instead, or whatever? And the guy's like, okay, yeah, you're right. I'll buy from you. And basically the idea there was I can slap a guarantee on the box, but it's still a guaranteed piece of crap. Like it doesn't matter. It's just marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I went and got those certifications just because I knew that there's people in the audience like that.
Right.
So for people in the audience, I would say what I would recommend is ignore anybody's certifications and degrees. Like it doesn't matter. Okay. What do they know? If you watch my show, I give a lot of my stuff away for free. Go test it out.
Right.
Go test it out. And if it works for you, awesome. Let's work together. If it's not working for you, go find someone where something like their information works better for you.
Mm-hmm.
But people don't do that. They're more concerned with that piece of paper. Now, I don't know anyone that's going so far as to fake a whole degree and like a licensure and say, yeah, I'm a clinical therapist just to declare themselves a coach. I mean, that's pretty bad, I think.
Doubling down. Yeah, she's doubling down on it. Yeah, it's really unfortunate.
Allegedly, like we better say allegedly.
Allegedly, yes, yes. Many of Sadia's followers were men going through heartbreak or divorce, emotionally raw, and looking for guidance. How can false claims of being a psychologist create a dangerous power imbalance in that dynamic?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of those guys are immediately looking at her saying I'm a psychologist as authority,
Mhm.
right? And that's a logical fallacy, right? If you've ever studied philosophy, it's a logical fallacy. It's an appeal to authority, and so people are automatically just going to assume she knows what she's talking about because she has that title. And so that can be dangerous because she could be giving, I don't know what kind of really advice she's giving people. I've never had a coaching session with her. And, people put stuff out on social media, but when you actually meet with clients, their nuanced individual problem doesn't always fit whatever you're putting out on social media. So I don't know exactly what she's telling clients, but I would imagine that if she's giving them advice and it's not good, that's very dangerous, right? Like, I mean, especially let's say it's a situation with a marriage, right? And maybe someone hired her to help with their marriage situation, uh, and then whatever she suggested them doesn't work out. Now they're going to go through a divorce when if they went to someone else, they probably could have gotten better results. I don't know. It's hard to say that, what's going on with that because that could happen to any coach, to be honest. Like I've had clients where we've done the entire 3-month program, and every week, I give people assignments. They have direct access to me in the middle of the week, in between sessions. So, you can reach out to me anytime there's a question. And there's these guys that won't do the assignments every week. They come back and every week they have excuses, and they don't take advantage of me when they're in a situation. Like we'll have a session, they're like, oh, my wife was doing this and this and this and blah blah blah, and I'm like, why didn't you reach out to me?
Right.
And if they're not doing the work, they're not going to get the results. But then they might turn around and say, oh, well, Paul's a crap coach. It's like you can't control what work they're doing either, so it's hard to say whether she's done any damage or not.
True. That's a really good point. In your experience, what are some of the signs that a coach or a therapist might be exploiting a client's vulnerability rather than helping them heal?
Oh, well, if she's a female dating coach,
Okay.
I mean, the way I look at this, okay, this is the way the female dating coach, and I should say, I should take a step back there, okay? There are female dating and relationship coaches that coach women. A lot of those women have phenomenal advice for other women, in my opinion. A friend of mine in the space, she's been on my podcast probably more than any man has. This gal named Morgan May. Morgan, she's a hoot, and she teaches women girl game, and she teaches women how to meet rich guys and not settle for guys who aren't rich. And I respect the hustle and I respect the game, And so
Right.
she will come on the show, and we're not adversaries. We are swapping notes, and it's like, yeah, she's fascinating because when I have her on, I like to pick her brain about women that are doing this, like what are they thinking, right? And so that my audience can stay away from women like that, and she's totally cool to help with that because she's like, I don't want your audience anyway, I want these I want these other guys,
It works.
and so I women like that are great, right? But female dating coaches that are talking to men, and they often fall into the very same category as men's rights activists, right? These are women that will basically, oftentimes their content is all about why women should love you for all these things that are flawed about you, instead of you improving yourself so that you can attract better women. It's all about why women should dumb themselves down for you, and whatever. And these guys are like, oh, she's saying, she's so right, protect her at all costs and stuff like that, and once you see it, you can't unsee it, right? There was a gal, I don't want to name her name. She's pretty big in the space. She's probably got 500,000 followers on all platforms. On each individual platform, she's got probably 500,000 followers. And I was on her very first live stream, and she had me on just because she had never done a live stream for the most part, and she just wanted my insight on how to navigate that, and then she wanted to pick my brain about red pill and hypergamy or whatever. And dudes in the chat, like there was one guy that sent her five $100 super chats, five separate $100 super chats, and another guy sent her a $600 super chat just for being you, right? And that's the grift. That's the grift right there. Are these guys that want to be, told that there's nothing wrong with them, that they don't have to do anything different, that these women are wrong, and all you have to do is be yourself, and all just bad typical dating advice that women give. And these guys are just there to give them super chats and support anything they do, and they'll pay for the coaching calls just to have a chance to talk to her and stuff. You know what I mean? And so they're not there to give genuine advice to save relationships. They're there basically like OnlyFans for red pill. And it's a real sad thing. And a lot of them aren't giving genuine advice that will really help you out.
It's kind of going off topic, but why do you think guys would rather spend, say, $500 on a super chat? I look at it as like, why would somebody want to get like a little tiny goldfish rather than learn how to fish? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
why are you spending $500 on a super chat rather than spending $5,000 or a few $1,000s on something that you could take away for life?
They think that these chicks are going to have sex with them. That's why they're like, if I give them my money, because a lot of these guys' logic is women only care about money, right? So they're like, if I show her that I have money and I can just willy-nilly give you a $600 super chat, well, she's going to look at me extra special. And when I slide into her DMs, oh, she's going to remember me. And it's like, she's not, bro. In fact, she's going to look at you like you're a sucker. Yeah, and in fact, after the show, she and I were chatting. I was like, man, I can't believe these guys are just sending me money. She's like, yeah, they do that all the time. It was just like, it was no big deal. Oh
my gosh.
Yeah. And I was like, well, you're going to be fine, in this space.
You're going to be fine.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You're going to be all right. You don't have to worry about anything. Cause she had just, wow. She had an actual job, and then she was doing the TikToking and date coaching as a side, like a lot of us start out as, and then she got laid off, and so when she had me on the live stream, it was like, I'm doing this full time now. And so after that show, I was like, yeah, you're going to be all right. You're nothing for you to worry about, right? I got to figure out Facebook ads so I can sell a course, but you just show up and they're just because yeah.
And they're not going to listen to the advice of, hey man, sliding into her DMs, she's not going to F you. She's not going to do it, dude.
She's not. Yeah.
She's not. If a man in the fragile state believed he was speaking to a licensed psychologist, how might that have shaped his trust, decisions, and even financial investment in her services?
He's probably more willing to pay the higher prices and stuff like that. The thing is, though, so her pricing isn't really out of the norm for this space. If you look at it, a lot of the videos were about how she was charging $8,000 a session. That's not true. Because I looked at, I was like, God, that is high. No one's charging $8,000 a session. Right. I think Corey Wayne was charging, the last time I looked, $1,100 a session. I think Rich Cooper, the last time I looked, he was charging $50 a minute or something, which comes out to be like $3,000. Mm-hmm. But I was like, 8,000 is pretty high. But if you go to her site, her one-on-one calls are around $500 US, and which is going rate. And then her 3-month program on how to be a high-value man, that's $8,000, and that's pretty much in the ballpark of what a 3-month program would go for. So I don't hate her for that. But yeah, I mean, so here, and this is where the marketing comes in, right? Marketing comes in where if I say I have a 3-month program to fix your dead bedroom, which I do, and then she says I have a 3-month program, to teach you how to be a high value man, whatever. It's going to be the same thing, though. If you're a high value man, your wife's going to want to bang you. Mm-hmm. You probably would go with Sadia because she's got a psychology degree, right? And like, Paul's just has a certification,
Right.
and he's a misogynist. And so, they're more likely to go with her. And then it's just a matter of like, okay, I hope you get what you pay for, I really do.
Yeah.
So, but guys, like for guys, before you book a session with me, I prefer you don't book a session with me, but go read my book first. Try out what I talk about. I have my book, especially a dead bedroom situation. And read my book. There's an accompanying workbook.
Mhm.
It's going to cost you 30 bucks, I think, from Amazon if you get the paperback and the workbook, right? 30 bucks. Compare that to a $500 session with me after the fact, right? Like you'd probably, if you could fix your marriage with that, you don't need to talk to me. And I'd much rather you do that because time's valuable to me. But I'm offering that, right? Like you can go and get something at a much lower cost and see what I'm even about. I don't know if Sadia even has that. You can listen to her sound bites. You might be able to listen to a couple of episodes. Maybe go try some of that stuff out. Maybe her advice works for you. Then yeah, maybe a coaching session would be worth it. I don't know. To me, it's my problem is really with the guys that are over focused on the licensure, right, or the paper work. Because I try to tell guys, forget the paperwork. I mean, Joe Dispenza, right? Joe Dispenza. Joe Dispenza is a doctor, okay? And a lot of people would go, oh, yeah, he's a doctor of what? Quantum physics and, whatever. No, he's a chiropractic doctor, right? But because he has doctor in front of his name, you're going to pay attention to him like he's an authority. It's like, I would rather much your viewers go, wait a second, maybe we shouldn't listen to credentials. Maybe we should just take their advice with a grain of salt until we can test it out ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Do your due diligence.
Yeah.
Definitely.
There's an excellent forum post, an old Red Pill Archive forum post, and it was called like, put this bucket on your head right now. I think that's the name of the title of the post. And this guy was saying, how do you find the right people in the space? Because anyone could claim to be an expert. And this guy says, well, if a guy says to put a bucket on your head and that's going to solve all of your life problems, is he wearing a bucket on his head? Okay, so maybe he is wearing a bucket on his head. How's his life? Like, is his life great? Is everything,
right,
thumbs up for that guy? Well, then, okay, maybe listen to what he's talking about. Maybe this bucket on your head thing, there's some merit to it, right? But otherwise, like, just take it with a grain of salt until you can go test it out for yourself,
Yeah, that's why it was really disturbing. And I think the alleged, I gotta throw that out there first, the alleged side chick moniker that's going out there.
That one is pretty hard to dispute with the audio of her actually saying that stuff. That's her voice, it's.
Yeah, I'm like, did AI do that? It did really? That's a really good AI job, isn't it?
I was gonna say, because even AI is not that good yet,
Right.
Their videos are getting pretty good, but not that good.
Yeah, that's kind of like what I keep hearing. The smoking gun, here comes that, and then the side chick. Oof. Sadia built much of her brand on Instagram and YouTube, where she discussed trauma, cheating, and emotional triggers. How do you see social media amplifying the reach, rather, and potential damage of someone making misleading professional claims?
Well, this space, it's like sharks in the water, So,
Right.
so if she's makes, is talking about that kind of stuff, talking about, telling people like not to cheat and all this kind of stuff, but she's, one of those people that goes out and sleeps with other people's husbands. This space.
Allegedly husbands, and I think it's a fiance. Just throwing it out there.
We
Sorry.
go. Yeah, see, I wasn't sure if it was husband, fiance, boyfriend, whatever. If she's
allegedly fiance.
If
I put alleged there for whatever.
Yeah, if she's allegedly sleeping with some other woman's man, I mean, this space is just going to be all over it. Everyone's out to get each other in the space. It's very cutthroat. It's almost like high school in the space. It's so sad, and that's why I try to stay out of that stuff. I don't really like to get into the mudslinging and stuff like that. That's why That's why I'm almost. I would say probably more lenient on Sadia than anybody, because I'm like, the credentials, I'm like, my thing is that you're a woman trying to teach men how to be men. And that's my big problem with this whole
Yeah.
thing.
Like we talked about this earlier, it's like by the time she was 21, her experiences in relationships and with opposite sex, I can say for myself that it'll never compare. You
Mm-mm.
know, in my entire lifetime, I will never have the experiences that she had with the opposite sex by the time she was 21. And that alone kind of, I would be like, she could tell me everything, but I know she wouldn't be able to relate to what I've gone through.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even now, for me, at least 50 to 100 times a week, I have people will stop the scroll and get in my comment section just to call me bald and make fun of me because I'm bald. Do you think Saudi has ever had to deal with something like that?
Right.
I doubt it. I highly doubt it, you
Yeah.
know. And yeah, that's the thing, right? A woman with some speck of beauty has had their life handed to them, right? And it's only when women start pushing 40 that they really start to notice that, yeah, life was handed to me, you know. And this is where, you know, you start seeing women, you know, they'll make crying TikToks, and the guys in this space will just, you know, crap all over those poor women. But these women, you know, bless their hearts, they didn't know any better, right? And so their red pilling is when they realize, oh my God, I can't compete with a woman half my age, and no one's opening doors for me anymore. And it's like this, it's this sad, you know, realization with some of these women, right? And Sadia hasn't even gotten there yet, and it's like she's still a very attractive woman, and people are still simping over her, and she's never had the same experiences as you or I, you know.
Right.
And it's like this is why we have the expression, don't ask a fish how to catch fish, ask a fisherman, right? Because a fish doesn't know why they like worms, they don't know why they like flies, right? But a good angler knows that if you smoke the right cigar and spit on it at this time of day, that's going to catch 25 fish, right? Like they know what the fish are biting for, right? It's because they've been out there doing it for years.
Right.
So yeah, and that's the big takeaway I want guys who are listening to this to really get from this.
Yeah. Brilliant. What role do you think platforms like Instagram and YouTube should play in verifying the credentials of people giving mental health or relationship advice, if any?
Um, I don't know if that's necessarily their job, you know.
Mm.
And then how would they go about doing that, right? And then what about
Right.
these are the things I like to think about, you know. And it's not that you know, it wouldn't, maybe it would be a good idea, but I'm just wondering, like, how would they go about doing that, right? Because if you don't have to even have a credential to be a dating coach, how would you even prove that? And then all of a sudden, now YouTube is the arbiter of what credentials you get. It's now it becomes a favoritism thing, you know? So I don't know. I don't even know. I personally wouldn't like that. I'm kind of more of a libertarian type guy, though, you know, where I'm like, I don't like it. People tell me what I should and shouldn't do. I kind of would rather people make their own decisions.
It's another case for doing your own due diligence, really, taking a deeper look into it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's really sad, you know, is everything online can be faked. It can all be faked, right? Credentials clearly can be faked, allegedly. But like I've had guys on calls where they're like, "Well, let me see your reviews," and I'm like, I'll send you reviews from my clients, but I mean, does that really tell you what you're going to get from this? You know, because I could fake these. You know, I could make up a bunch of fake reviews. You wouldn't know the difference, right? If you look on, what I find fascinating is as an author, just getting positive reviews is near impossible, right? Just for people that even like your product. And so when I'm constantly asking people like, hey, if you've read my book and it's helped you, like, please take a moment and leave a review, right? Most people, if they like something, they don't leave a review.
Right.
They will stop time and space and, you know, take a day off from work if they have to leave a bad review.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So if you're relying on good reviews from people, I would be skeptical about that too.
Right. Yeah, it is. There's something about it. People are more apt to provide negative feedback than positive. To get positive feedback is just like pulling teeth. It's really difficult to do. And it takes like I guess a lot of, I don't want to say evidence, but a really good experience to be able
Yeah.
to leave a positive review, unless they're getting paid or something. I don't know.
Right. And
No,
that, so that's why I always tell people like, just listen to my podcast for like, just a couple of weeks, take some of the stuff I talk about for free and go
Mhm.
try it. Don't
Yeah.
take my word for it. Go try it. And when you come back and get results, like, yeah, now let's talk, maybe get a book or something. And then, but I'd much rather people, uh, take what I say, run with it with the free stuff and then like the low content stuff. And then if you're like getting all these great things and you think that working with me one-on-one, then let's talk, right? I'd much rather people do that. I'm not out there trying to like hammer home like you got to work with me,
And where can they find your free stuff again? I think you mentioned it earlier.
I got two free ebooks. If they go to comeonmanpod.com, if you're in a dead bedroom situation, I got one there called She's Made You Weak. It's all about why attraction fades in a long-term relationship. And then another one, if you've been recently divorced or broken up with, and you're thinking about getting an ex back, I've got one called Fine, Here's How to Get Her Back. And it takes you through the process of getting your ex back, but that also tells you why that's a terrible idea. So those are free. If you go there, my podcast is free. Like all my social media stuff's free. Like just take the free stuff and go try it for yourself. And then when you're getting results, let's talk. I'd much rather people do that.
Brilliant. Brilliant. If you've ever been in that raw post-breakup fog, you know how desperately you want answers and how easy it is to put blind trust into someone who seems to have credentials to help. That's why this conversation matters. It's not just about one person's alleged false claims. It's about protecting people at their most fragile and holding the relationship advice industry to a higher standard. Paul's insights today aren't just for those who've been burned. They're for anyone who wants to make sure it never happens again. Like, subscribe, and forward this episode of the Glen Gilbert Connection to someone who may value it as well. Let's continue. So, Paul, how does cases like this affect the trust the public has in legitimate psychologists and relationship coaches?
This is really bad for us. People that do this for a living. It is one of those things because even before this, there's a lot of distrust in the space. There's a lot of faceless masculinity accounts on X, and they're selling Gumroad courses. And it's funny because I put all my stuff on Gumroad too. It's a great platform, but it's like just that by itself, because there's so many of them. Some of them aren't even in this country. There a lot of them are overseas running these faceless accounts, and it's really hard for people to know who to really trust, and so that by itself, it's hard to get clients. People that really need the help are afraid to even ask the help because they don't even know where to go to. And so when people like Sadia come out and potentially, allegedly, fake their credentials, then it makes us all look bad. It makes the whole industry look bad.
Right. Another case for doing your due diligence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you personally encountered skepticism from potential clients who've been burned by unqualified experts online?
Yep. I've had people skeptical on calls, when I'm trying to, get them to do a coaching program. And the thing is that when people get so skeptical, they're just not going to get any help. No one's gonna give them the right answers because they're just not going to believe anybody. And that's unfortunate. That's because some of these guys really need a lot of help. I've had two guys come from the same coach, and they're like, "Oh, I was working with this guy. I'd never even heard of this guy before." I had two of his clients come over and start working with me one-on-one. And I'm not even going to mention his name though, because he's pretty big on Apple. But I've been on his show, and I've had actual people find my work through his show because his show's so big and stuff like that. But people have worked with him, and they just weren't getting results. And so they came to start working with me, and they do get results, because I'm serious about getting people results. That's why most coaches, if you hire them, even if it's like a 3-month program, you have like weekly, maybe bi-weekly sessions. A lot of them are group sessions because it's actually easier to scale the business. I don't know if you guys knew that, if you have group calls instead of single calls. And then that's it. You go to those sessions, you wait, you know, whatever the challenges they give you to do, you have to wait until the next session to ask questions or whatever. But I'm like, no, you have direct access to me basically 24/7. You know, if you got a problem with your wife, you know, sneak off to the bathroom and send me a message or something. Okay. Like I get back to you pretty quick. And most people aren't doing that, but that's because I really want these guys to succeed. That was why I decided to do this. I wanted to help men level up and get better with women because I got to a place myself after two bad breakups, which we've talked about before, where I was like, I never want this to happen again. I've got to figure out what I'm doing wrong to make sure this never happens again. And once I found all this stuff and all this knowledge, I was like, I got to tell everybody about this. Like every guy needs to know this stuff because like our marriage rates are trash right now. You know, people are struggling on dating circuits. They don't know how to interact with women. There's all this divide between men and women. And I'm like, man, if guys just learn this stuff, we could make the whole world a better place. Yes. You know? And so that's my ultimate goal, you know, and a part of that I learned from my coach, which was Coach Corey Wayne, you know, and I didn't even hire him as a one-on-one coach. I just did what he told me to do, which was read his book 10 to 15 times. Right. So I did that. And then I read a bunch of other books. And one of the things that he said is, you know, if we can make our relationships better, you know, like our kids will see it, their kids, you know, like they will have better relationships, their kids will see it. And just by working locally, we can make the whole world a better place. And I'm like, that's a beautiful dream.
That's very similar reason why I got into this space as well. I just started looking at, you know, after two relationships that ended not the way I wanted, I started looking at, you know, what can I do different, and started looking in the space and starting to look at stats. And it's like, well, wow, why are guys knocking, you know, self-deleting 9 times higher after a divorce?
That's why Rollo does this. Yes. Rollo does this because his brother-in-law unalived himself, you know?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. You know what? I didn't know that either until I interviewed Paul Benjamin from Apex Mindset. He told me that when I first was getting into the red pill space, because I was like, red pill's bad, you know. But let me interview this Apex Mindset guy. He seems to know what he's talking about. And he was telling me, he's like, yeah, Rollo does this because his brother-in-law unalived himself, and he wanted to make sure that this doesn't happen to other guys.
Oh wow. Okay. I didn't know that. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But that makes a lot of sense. And it really does take something as tragic as that for us to be like, let's do something about it. You know?
Yeah.
It's just like, we can't just sit back anymore.
And that's why I'm kind of protective about like red pill type content specifically, because I'm like, it needs to come from men. Because women aren't unaliving themselves, you know, some do, but not at the rate men do. And men, it's not even relationships. Men, if they lose their job, they'll unalive themselves. Like men are just more likely to do it. And the way they do it is final. A lot of the way women try to unalive themselves is like with a way that they can be saved, right? They will take some pills, or what's another way they do it? They like to slice their wrists or something like that, right? But both methods, there's some time for people to rush in and save them. So a lot of the times, you know, I'm not to downplay women's struggles, but a lot of times it's a cry for help, whereas guys are like, I don't want help, I just want to end it. And it's like, if we can save these guys, I'm all about it.
I'm with you 100%. There are stats at the CDC about all of this stuff, and the major one is basically of self deletions, 80% are made up by males. And so, I mean, that alone, and then, so it's 4 times higher than females in general. And then that jumps up to 9 times higher after a divorce.
Yeah. I have a couple of guys in my wolf pack that, one guy's past it. Thank God he's past it. And he was doing one-on-one coaching with me, and he would reach out to me every Sunday, almost like clockwork, just in his deepest, darkest, you know, place. And I was doing everything in my power to try to get him to snap out of it, and he finally did. He's in a much better place now. And then I have this guy who recently went through a nasty breakup, and he lives out in the middle of nowhere. Like I thought I live out in nowhere, right? He lives in a town of 600 people in Illinois. Literally no one's around for 30 minutes is the closest town. And even that is smaller than Grand Junction, Colorado, right? It's tiny. And so he's lonely. And he talks in the Wolfpack. Well, for a while he wouldn't even talk in Wolfpack. And then he tried to cancel. And I was like, brother, you got to participate, if you want to, and he's like, well, I just don't know what to say to people. And I just feel like this. I'm like, say it in the group, man, And so he did. He decided, cause he had like a month left on the subscription. He was like, I'm going to lean into the Wolfpack a little bit. And he started sharing stuff. And when all the guys in there, a lot of the guys have been through it. They've all been through it. There's some guys that have a lot of the same training I do. They're in there helping. And when guys are just in a lot of pain, like everyone piles in, it's like a pack. And he was like, oh man, this is actually better than my therapy sessions, because he was doing therapy. And so he renewed it for another month, and then he canceled another month. And I was like, are you sure? I'm like, you're welcome to go, but if you're really struggling right now, I'd love to have you stay. I'm not going to make you though. Right. And he renewed again. And I'm just like, thank God, because if he's in there and he's chatting with the guys and he's getting support from the guys and ideas, he's not unaliving himself. Right.
It is so important to have that kind of group for men, just other guys to go, yep, I what you're talking about is what I've dealt with, and here's some suggestions to do it. But yeah, you're not alone, brother. You're not alone, and I think that is the most important thing. I remember going through some really dark stuff, thinking, yep, there's no one else I can talk to or depend on. And it was really dark. And then that's why, things started happening when I started looking a little deeper. I mean, I ran into Kevin Samuel's stuff, and that's how things just changed. It's like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. God rest Kevin's soul.
Yeah, exactly. We talked a little bit about it, but just any suggestions, or what would you think would be like some extra steps, that someone could take to reassure, or let me put this way, what extra steps do you now take to reassure clients of your legitimacy and ethical standards? And we talked a little bit about it, but I think it's important to kind of cover it again, or maybe even to suggest, like, guys that are looking, here's some extra steps you can do if you're really curious. Yeah.
Well, I would say, one, stop focusing on credentials. I got my primary care practitioner up the street, right? I go there once a year. I'm on TRT. You and I have talked about TRT before, right? Mm-hmm. This guy is like a total pansy. I think this guy needs to get his T levels checked, right? He sits cross-legged. He's just very feminine. And when I told him I was on TRT and I'm not doing it through him, he was like, what are you doing? This is very dangerous stuff. And I was like, it's with a nurse practitioner. I was going through a company called Mail Excel. And I'm like, I'm working with a nurse practitioner. It's fine and stuff. And he's like, I don't know. It's, like, look at Lyle Alzado. He died of cancer with this stuff. And I go, he was on steroids. This is testosterone. I'm like, you're a doctor, right? Like this, this is my conversation with an actual MD, And so to me, I'm like, credentials are nonsense. What extra steps, if you're going to work with me, like I said before, I'd much rather just tune into the podcast. Tune into the podcast. I have new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And just listen to it and take some notes and try some of it out, right? And if that's what I would recommend to anybody in the space. Like, okay, you don't like my spin on stuff. I'm a misogynist. Great. Go listen to Rollo's stuff, right? Rollo's probably gets called a misogynist a lot too. Go listen to Ryan Stone's stuff, go listen to Rich Cooper's stuff, like any of these guys, go listen to their stuff, and whatever resonates with you, try it out and see what works for you. I have my holy trinity of dating books, I call them, these were like the ones I read on repeat, and it's How to Be a 3% Man by Corey Wayne. Go listen to his stuff. It's wonderful. Dr. Robert Glover, he's written phenomenal books. My favorite is Dating Essentials for Men, but No More Mr. Nice Guy is amazing. I don't think he has a lot of online content anymore, but you can like, I think he sells his old podcast on his website and it's very cheap, like $10 or something. You can listen to his podcast. Just do that. And then Christopher Canwell, he has some old stuff on YouTube. I don't think he makes any new content, but you can find his old stuff for free on YouTube. Test their stuff out,
Right.
and if it works for you, use their stuff. Go buy their books, that's what I would recommend. Go do what's useful. And that's always what Red Pill's been. It's been guys swapping notes about what works and what doesn't. Whose methods work the best. That's why we all know names like Mystery and Royce and Roosh V and stuff like that. It's because people were talking about their stuff and saying, yeah, that guy's stuff works. Yeah. If people are saying, hey, that guy Paul Bauer stuff works, like, okay, try my stuff out.
I would even add to some of the suggestions there, Paul, is to not just listen, but listen to the long form, not the shorts. Listen to the long forms so you can get the entire context. Things can be easily taken out of context and twisted to something that might be different. And I think that was one of the issues that Kevin Samuels had is people are like, oh, he's misogynistic, he's mean, he's rude. But you start listening to his long form content and it always starts out of a place that I consider as like, women are calling him, wanting advice. And he's like, okay. And I'll treat you the same way you treat me. If you treat me with respect, I will treat you with respect. If you start treating me bad, I'll treat you bad. And that's just how I operate. And that's when things, for me at least, started opening up. So it's like, please, please, please do yourself a favor and listen to the long form content. If it's like, I don't want to listen to 2 hours of stuff, start learning to do it at 1.5 times speed. It may sound crazy, but...
Or listen 10 minutes at a time or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have... Yeah, you don't have to be like, I got to sit down for 2 hours and listen to this entire thing.
What you're saying about Kevin Samuels getting taken out of context, I do that on purpose. I do that on purpose with my own clips. I use a service called Opus Clips, right? I don't know if you've heard of it, right? So I take every episode and I run it through Opus Clips and I specifically tell it, find the most shocking, polarizing, or triggering segments. And the reason why I do that is because that kind of crap stops the scroll. Right? It'll get you to stop. It'll get you to watch that video and it might actually get you to tune in. Right? But if you're just a short form viewer, you're just going to take that and go, God, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, Right. But I do it on purpose because it's marketing, and unfortunately that in order to get you to come watch my long form content where I give you the real, meat and potatoes, like that's the way it is. And the sad thing is we live in a too long didn't read generation, and so many people just want the sound bites. And
I know.
you're never going to solve your marriage problems with sound bites on TikTok.
Yeah, and I'm guilty of doing the short forms and just being like, oh my gosh, and then you listen to the long one. I'm like, oh, I had it completely screwed. That's not what's going on here at all. Yeah, and it's like do yourself a favor. If you can, just check out the long form. I've
had people make assumptions about what I'm talking about in the comments, and they'll go off, and I'm like, you're making a pretty big assumption from a 30-second soundbite of a 1 hour long podcast.
Yes, exactly, exactly. How can the coaching and psychology community work together to protect vulnerable people from being misled by false claims?
I don't know if they're ever going to be able to do that. I will say it does help when guys like me in the red pill coaching space do talk to professional psychologists and vice versa. I've had what's his name, Sean T. Smith. He's the Iron Shrink on X. He wrote a book. He wrote a couple books, but one of them that he's really well known for is the Tactical Guide to Women. Phenomenal book. And he was on my show and he was saying, he's like, I love red pill. I love the guys in the red pill space because it gives us a counterbalance. It gives people an alternative place to go, okay, well, maybe these psychology guys are wrong about this. Like, let me try this out. And it goes back into testing it out for yourself, And what he found, what he doesn't like about red pill, he's like, everything's based on hypergamy. And he's like, you can't base everything on hypergamy. He's like, it's a thing, but it's just, one small factor. And it's like, nah, man, I think we'll stick with that. I think we'll stick with hypergamy for now. Yeah. It's a good framework,
Right. If you could speak directly to someone who feels betrayed after discovering their therapist, and that's quotes, their
Oh,
therapist wasn't qualified, what would you say to help them rebuild trust in the healing process?
ooh, man, if I got swindled by therapy, Saudi, leave Saudi off the table. If it was any
Right,
therapist,
right.
right?
Yeah,
If I felt like I got swindled by them, yeah, I think it would be near impossible for me to ever trust any of them again. You know, like I said, by just talking to my doctor up the street, I'm like, if my leg's not broken, you know, if I don't have like a broken, you know, problem, like I just had knee surgery, right? If I don't have a problem like that, I'm never going to the doctor. They don't know what they're talking about, you know?
hmm,
So something like that to rebuild trust with the doctor, it would take a much better doctor, I guess, you know.
sure,
And it's
sure.
almost like you can't live without doctors, whereas people can live without coaches. They can live without therapists. You know, some of them live very rough lives without that help.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know, man. That would be a very challenging thing.
Try.
What I recommend for a lot of people though is to develop a sense of self-reliance. You know, um,
Right.
a lot of the stuff that you would learn by going and talking to a therapist and stuff like that, you can self teach yourself that stuff. You know, you can just listen to the right books. One of the most recent Wolfpack guy that's really going through that and really wants to unalive himself. One of the things that I sort of realized is that he was over focusing on reading my breakup book. And I was like, I bet you anytime he picks up that book and listens to it, it just forces him to think about his ex more, you know, and
Mm,
think about all the things he did wrong and all this kind of stuff. And
sure.
it starts a downward spiral. I was like, stop reading my book, read this book. And I gave him a, um, a Wayne Dyer book called The Erroneous Zones. Came out like in the 60s. I was like, just read this book for a little bit. Just take a break from that stuff, man.
Yeah,
And just get your mind off your ex and relationships. Like
100%.
forget that stuff. Just focus on you and your thoughts and like what you might what might be incorrect thinking and stuff, you know. And you don't even need a therapist. You just you
That's
know.
like living in the house that you built with your ex, and you know that she cheated on some guy in every room, and now they're gone. And so every room you look at, you think about her and maybe some other guy, or she's gone. I mean, that's just like a constant reminder.
Yeah,
And how are you ever going to improve if you're constantly being reminded of this
right.
betrayal or
You
this
can't get her
dark,
out of your head because everything's reminding you of it. Okay, well now
right?
you got to take those reminders away for a little bit. Forget my book for a minute, you know,
Yes,
listen to something completely different, you know.
yes, yes,
And so I think that helped him out, you know, for a couple of days. And
yeah.
but yeah, just stuff like that. I have been so focused over the last several years on just working on my own crap, you
Hmm.
know, and I've done that purely through podcasts and audiobooks, you know.
Right.
And I have hired coaches. You know, I hired a business coach recently, phenomenal set of coaches in his
Nice.
program. And so coaches work really well if you really need help in a specific area. But otherwise, if you've got time, you know, you can do it yourself. And the thing is about like audiobooks and podcasts is it's effortless. You can listen to it in your car. You
Yes.
can go to the gym and listen to stuff, like take a break from the hard rock or whatever it is you listen to when you're bench pressing and listen to the Glen Gilbert show, you know, like
Right, 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 right. I love it. Yeah,
yeah.
100%. I was talking, this is really ironic. I was talking to a friend of mine today, and she's going through a divorce, and she's like, well, I have to go over, and they were married. I think that it's in the middle of the divorce. They're separated now, married for decades.
Mm,
Oh, I've got to go over. He needs to go out and go back to the house, and I got to take care of the dogs and some other things, and I got to do this and that. And that she's like, I just feel horrible going there. Kind of like what we were just talking about. Every time she goes in there, and it's just a reminder of how bad she felt, basically how he treated her. She's like, I
mm,
just feel horrible, all this kind of stuff. I'm like, you need to just take a break. Just do yourself a favor and take a break and get out of there. She was like, it's really weird when I go to the house I'm at, I feel happy and it feels like somehow it's wrong, but I feel good. And I'm like,
yeah.
that's your new sanctuary, is this
Yeah.
new place, and it's giving you joy, and you're like, you're happy to be there. Focus on that for a little while. Give yourself a break because going back to that house, it's just keeping you dragged down. Really.
Yeah, it's an emotional anchor, really, is what we call it in NLP. And that's what I realized was happening is this book is probably keeping him anchored in that downward spiral. So I was like, stop reading my book,
And that's brilliant. You're like, hey, man, I know you like the book. And it's like, that's really nice that you're reading my book, but you need to stop, bro.
Yeah, you can get back to it in a little while, but you need to clear your head of this stuff. And
Right.
a lot of the stuff I talk about in the book is about getting rid of those reminders, like, yeah, you're following her on social media. And so you almost feel compelled to see what she's up to. Block her on social media. And it's not about keeping her from seeing what you're doing. It's so that you are not so tempted to see what she's doing, and all this stuff can really help guys. And it's stuff that I figured out on my own, because I found a year after the breakup with Red Pill Chick, I had a moment of weakness where I decided to see what she was up to on her Facebook page. And normally her Facebook page is locked down. She doesn't, have anything public. And she, on the anniversary of our breakup, decided to make these these pictures of her and her new boyfriend, which she cheated on me with, public. And I saw that stuff. It was like right before bedtime too. So of course I see this stuff, and all of a sudden just downward spiral. And I couldn't sleep that night. All I could do was think about all the signs of how she probably cheated on me, right, which I confirmed later. But it was like, oh my God. And then I couldn't sleep that whole damn night. Right. And it was like, why did I do that to myself? Right. And so that's why I tell guys, like, no, just block them. You don't want to know, you don't
want to go back. You don't want to try to, I mean, they're probably already have moved on. There's a reason why they've done what they've done. Going back is just,
it's like rooting through the trash.
Yeah, it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
Paul, we've covered so much tonight. Before we sign off, is there anything else you'd like to add, refer to?
I would just say, I just want to reiterate, don't ask fish how to catch fish, ask a fisherman. And even before you ask the fisherman, just keep an eye and see how much fish he has in his cooler, right? Because he might be totally full of crap. Yeah. and there's no way to know in this space unless you just test this stuff out for yourself. There really is no other way to know.
Right. Do the due diligence just to cover yourself. And where can they find you again?
You can find me at comeonmanpod.com. My podcast is there. Links to my books, all that kind of stuff's right there. Comeonmanpod.com.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks, Paul. If today's conversation opened your eyes, don't let it stop here. Share this episode with someone who might be putting their trust and their heart in the wrong hands. And if you're ready to rebuild with clarity and confidence, connect with professionals who are transparent about their training and ethics. You can find Paul Bauer's work linked in the show notes. And as always, join our community at the Glen Gilbert Connection, where we're committed to truth, healing, and legacy. Like, subscribe, comment, and share this episode with someone who needs it. Until next time, stay discerning, stay hopeful, and keep rebuilding the connections that last. Thanks again, Paul. I really appreciate your time.